Nobody has a perfect childhood or a parent who doesn't make some kind of a mistake that left long-lasting effects from their childhood. Because being a parent isn't easy. It doesn't come with a how-to book, and you can't predict what curveballs life is going to toss at you. But it is a whole nother ball game for the children born into a family with a narcissistic parent, which in my opinion, it is from within how narcissists view and the treatment that they bestow upon their own children that is hands down the most anti-human part about them, as the average person is wired with an innate instinct to want to protect not only ourselves, but our children. However, this is not the case with narcissists. Oh, no. These predators set out on the hunt, intentionally seeking out their own offspring just as easily as they do anyone or anything else. Will take them down without second thought and get pleasure in watching them suffer as they shred them to pieces. There is absolutely nothing human about that, but this is not the only reason. Narcissists leave their children mentally and emotionally scarred. Several studies have been done within the past year looking at the degree of impact this has on the child and what problems children with narcissistic parent may have in store for them into their adulthood, to which it will likely be no shocker to anyone who has had the misfortune of being within the walls of the narcissist mental concentration camp, receiving their daily unleashings of psychological torture, that these studies were unanimous in their findings that individuals with narcissistic personality disorder legitimately do not have the capacity of being decent parents, and that their parenting will undoubtedly have long-lasting implications and negative effects on their children, yielding over a dozen major factors contributing to why someone with narcissistic personality disorder cannot provide a good foundation for parenting, and the negative impact that each factor poses in terms of the child's development and mental well-being. Recognizing and understanding these factors are extremely important for anyone who has a child with a narcissistic individual, whether diagnosed or you just highly suspect. And equally as important, if you yourself are a child who was born into a family with a narcissistic parent, in understanding certain behaviors and tendencies that you may have acquired as a result, to which will be extremely beneficial in terms of healing, as well as extremely helpful for anyone who is currently or will be likely facing a narcissist in court, that if there are children involved, at some point there is going to be a battle over custody, because they simply cannot help themselves from strumming up unnecessary chaos and pain for others, or to take you on yet another spin around the streets of hell, face first by your ankle, just for shits and giggles. Most people with narcissistic personality disorder don't get their official diagnosis, and without one, judges do not want to hear the words narcissist or narcissistic abuse, nor do judges restrict custody merely off the basis of someone having a diagnosis, as many judges and representatives amongst our judicial system do not have proper education or knowledge pertaining to narcissistic personality disorder or what narcissistic abuse entails for their victims. But by using these contributing factors eliminates you from ever having to utter the word narcissist, can help guide you in what to document from your situations, experiences, or observations that coincide with these factors, showing why it is not in the child's best interest to remain in custody with said parent. And the more documentation you have, the better off you are going to be. So on that note, started. Narcissists having a delusional sense of being above all and seeing others as merely objects or extensions of themselves, will neglect to think of their child's best interest or needs are getting met unless it serves them in some form or fashion to do so, as this overemphasis on their own wants and desires keeps the focus of their attention. As a result, narcissists cannot support healthy emotional development in a child that requires one to be emotionally available when they need it in means of attention, affection, and nurture. And without being able to receive this unless there was something in it or when it was convenient for their parent to do so, leads to a child lacking a positive self-concept as well as lacking a sense of security and overall safety. Not having a stable, realistic, and integrated view of themselves and not seeing others as their own individual identity with feelings or opinions at all can't develop whole object relations and are incapable of seeing that someone can have both good and bad qualities, or even something as being status quo or average and not necessarily all good or all bad. Because narcissists do not see in shades of gray. Everything is either perfect or it's a disaster. It's completely right or it is completely wrong. It's superior or inferior. And if their current emotional state sees their child as all good, then they will act and treat them accordingly. If in the moment their emotional state sees them as being all bad, then they will treat them according to such by devaluing, insult, and degrading them, regardless if it was completely unrelated to anything that the child did whatsoever, but due to their being people of the extremes and this black and white mentality, they dump and project whatever frustrations, angers, or unwanted feelings they have onto whoever is in front of them. Otherwise, they themselves will become the disaster. Mind you, the child's age does not make one bit of difference, starting from day one. They're not having object constancy, to which is the staple of abuse, because object constancy is what keeps us from seriously hurting those that we love and care for, whether it be mentally, emotionally, physically, or a combination of the three. We are able to recognize that we still have these positive feelings towards another, even if they've upset us in the current moment. Narcissists do not have this, because that would require them to view others as an individual. And without this, if they get frustrated, feel disrespected, crossed by their child, that child will go from all good to all bad in an instant. A narcissist total disregard for others' feelings and are incapable of seeing, appreciating, or meeting the child's needs. Everything is about them, and they are the only ones with feelings or opinions that exist. So their child should want what they want, be who they want them to be, do what it is that they want them to do, and generally subjugate who they are to the desires and demands of the narcissist. If the child wants to play piano, the narcissist will enroll them in soccer because that's what the narcissist thinks they should do. If they ask for a mountain bike for their birthday, the narcissist will get them a pair of roller skates, as that's what they like. And if their child grows up and becomes a nurse, but the narcissist thinks that they should have become an accountant, they will continue to make suggestions, recommendations, and bring up this point every chance that they can, as well as when talking to others, will portray and act as if their child is in fact an accountant, undermining who they are just so that they can fit into this ideal image that the narcissist creates, which greatly impedes upon the child's development as well as contributes to their having low self-esteem, feelings of unworthiness, takes away their voice and overall sense of safety, stopping to even express their desires, wants, or needs because they know they are just going to be invalidated or undermined, leading to many becoming either people pleasers or developing a sense of self-centeredness, learning and observing this from their narcissistic parent. They're being emotionally dysregulated and prone to having bouts of narcissistic rage makes it not only an unstable environment, but an unsafe environment for a child to develop psychologically, interfering with both their emotional well-being as well as their physical and overall well-being. As when they are in these moments of rage, it is all about revenge, regardless who it is that they perceive as being a threat. And if they perceive their child as disrespecting them and talking back to them or saying something to imply that they truly aren't Mother Teresa's doppelganger, well then, they are going to do whatever they see fit to make sure that they put their child back in their place, leading to insecurity and trust issues for the child, as well as having difficulties in emotional steadiness, developing anxiety, as well as immature coping mechanisms. They're insisting in remaining in this perpetual state of denial from reality, leads to their not only behaving and thinking completely ass backwards to that of the average person, but interpreting the world on their own terms and from their own basis, refusing to face reality or the truth at all cost and at all times. And in turn, the child developing from and learning out of this completely inaccurate view of the world, to which ultimately leads to an unrealistic and immature or inability to make sense of the world outside of this made-up bullshit narrative. They view a relationship as extremely unhealthy, not based off of bonding, attachment, reciprocity, respecting their boundaries, or seeing to it that the emotional needs and wants both involved in the relationship get met. In their mind's view, is completely one-sided, as well as more of a competition to which they have to win at, regardless of what type the relationship is. But for their child becomes even more dangerous, becoming completely normal to them in their mind, because that is what has been fed to them and they have witnessed and observed and picked up on from their parent their entire life. Children who experience this power dynamic at home sometimes mimic the same model in their interpersonal relationships, as well as have more difficulty in recognizing if they too find themselves down the road in a toxic situation or relationship, because for them, it's all they know. Narcissists needing to be in control, as they equate this as to what makes them so powerful, makes it impossible to try to set or hold to your boundaries, as they will intentionally go out of their way to overstep each and every one, eliminating all rights to one's privacy, as well as taking ownership of anything that someone has, whether it be your thoughts or your home. In their mind, it's all theirs, and will go about reading diaries, emails, barging into their room without knocking, and demanding they know their whereabouts at all time, whether it be going to the toilet or to play ball with their friend, often becoming overly involved in their hobbies, but not out of interest, rather to take credit for why their child is as good as they are. And on the flip side, simply will not tolerate if there are any imperfection to that skill, such as blaming the child for their team not winning, for missing that goal in their last lacrosse game, or if their child doesn't happen to be exceptional in any skill, likely because they never were given the opportunity to try anything that they wanted to try, or they will use this to play the victim card in efforts to gain sympathy ploys from others, as well as not let this impede upon their image, inventing or ramping up an ailment, issue that their child may have, some even going as far as full-blown Munchausen's syndrome by proxy, instigating hospital investigations be made and insisting on outlandish treatments for their child's imaginary illnesses. Their children are not immune to the cycle of abuse, as narcissists use them in every relationship with anyone that they have. Their children, too, will go through ideation, devaluing, and discard, using their own siblings in forms of triangulation, playing them off against each other, often leading to each child vying for and fighting over who gets their parents' attention. Their children becoming either a scapegoat, the golden child, or the invisible child, completely unseen and unheard, creating animosity and resentment between the siblings as these roles can shift without notice or having any rhyme or reason, sometimes happening every week. Other times, these assigned position will be allotted for years, and is really no wonder at all why children having a narcissistic parent have so many issues growing up into their adulthood, as well as the relationships that they'll have with others throughout their life, which is in and of itself bad enough. But that isn't even the worst part. Their complete disregard for their child's needs, wants, and best interest shows even more during moments of separation, divorce, or any form of shared custody would come into play, using them as pawns and weapons in their abuse game towards the other parent, in means of financial abuse, no longer contributing to their clothing, school fees, healthcare needs, paying absolutely nothing at all, leaving everything to fall on the other parent, to create suffering in the other parent by not cooperating or following through with any kind of previously agreed upon schedules, because they do not want or understand the meaning of playing fair, especially now that you have questioned and doubted fair being the best thing since Wonder Bread, and almost love throwing around the alienation card about as much as they do the victim card, strumming up all sorts of unnecessary fear in the other parent, to which has nothing to do with the children, how their image will look, as they know damn well it strikes up as a bit fishy when someone upright loses complete custody of their child, and as such go about tossing around parental alienation every chance they can to scare the living shit out of you, daring to say a word in the fear that you are going to be the one to lose your child. But here's the thing. Narcissists do not want full custody of your child any more than you want them to have it, because it's all fun and games, seeing the pain in both your and your children's eyes. But once that order becomes official, well then, their children once again become nothing more but an inconvenience in their being able to go about doing the things that they want to do. And really, parental alienation does not mean that you cannot protect your child from danger, just as you would protect them from any other potential threat of danger, as parental alienation is in regard to psychologically manipulating in efforts for the child to become estranged from the other parent, making up false tales and accusations of parental misconduct that is unjustified to the way the other parent their child. It does not have anything to do with telling your child the truth or trying to protect your child from the danger of an abusive parent. Period. All parental alienation to a narcissist is a way to blow smoke up your ass, to keep you from exposing their image, and as a way to assure that you will suffer, because all the while they are accusing you of parental alienation is the exact very thing that they are doing behind your back. And the most important things to remember when facing narcissists in court pertaining to custody battles: all normal rules of engagement and or expectations of actually co-parenting are not going to apply here, as you can have 100% full expectation of either devastation, disappointment, or letdown of their following through with any previously agreed upon schedules or events, as well as having a 100% guarantee that the only best interest at heart is their own, as they do not have but one single fuck to give for you or for any of their children. And depending on the age of your child, as much as you have that instinct to want to protect them by sugarcoating it, because who wants to come out and say, mommy or daddy doesn't really give a single fuck about how you feel or whether your best interest be met? Nobody in their right mind or who has compassion and empathy wants to even think about, let alone utter those words to their child. However, probably not exactly in those words. By being open, honest, and realistic, not only will it potentially spare them in the long run, but two, keeps you from by default further enabling them. Because, well, the reality of it is, it doesn't really matter whether you tell them their parent is a piece of shit or whether you try to sugarcoat it, and because unfortunately it takes getting to that point where enough is enough to finally be able to accept and face the brutal, harsh reality of all of this. Just as it took you to get to the point that enough was enough and be able to walk away from this abuse. And to be honest, even after 19 years of living with what I'm pretty sure was Satan his fucking self and having 3 children with, to which I firsthand witness the impact that this has on them, I still cannot begin to grasp what that is like being the child on the receiving end of such hatefulness, hurtfulness, and disregard for others' lives. It is absolutely wrong on every level. But unfortunately, it happens. And the best thing that you can do is be a good role model and not beat yourself up over the mistakes that you may have made along the way and are likely going to continue to make because, well, we're human and you can't change who their other parent is. But you can be a good example and show your child the love and compassion, nurture that they deserve, to which part of that is putting their best interest at heart, which isn't letting the narcissist influence them. And though you can't guarantee or predict what verdict or decision the judge is going to ultimately make, but you can fight for your child's best interest by telling them the truth and protecting them from danger, and by not living in the fear that the narcissist is trying to instill in you with these bullshit threats of parental alienation. Because, like I said, it is nothing but they're blowing smoke up your ass to keep you from exposing their image, as well as not having to pay any more of their precious money than they absolutely must. And they are not worth the satisfaction. Focus on you. Fuck the narcissist.